Hello, my name is Melissa DeWitt, and I will be presenting my plan today for Wonderful School. So, the first part of my data that I looked at that I felt that there was opportunities for growth was behavior and attendance. So, looking at office referrals and suspensions, attendance decreasing in the past 3 years, and the number of students that had behaviors throughout the school year. The next opportunity from data that I looked at were academics. So I really looked at the K through two, kindergarten through second grade, TRC scores in English. The next one was all grade levels, second through fifth, in reading and math for NWEA, and the IAR results. So when looking at them, I took a data dive and I really tried to look at a few questions, or not a few, but I had a lot of questions going on during that time. So when I was doing my data dive for behavior and attendance, I looked at things like, are we having students with IEPs and BIPs that are working? Are there supports in place for teachers that have students with behaviors that are seemingly hard to manage? Is there positive intervention systems in the school and in the classroom? Are there crisis plans and a crisis team to help take care of those things? Additionally, I looked at attendance. So what resources and supports do we need to increase our attendance? Also in the area of academics for reading and math, looking again at what supports are in place for ELL students, what supports are in place for our kindergarten and second graders, what does coaching look like in the building, and what happens after an assessment, either formative or summative, and what happens when a student does not make progress. And those questions I was really looking at for students second through fifth grade. So thinking about that, I really wanted to target behavior, because if we know that the behavior decreases, that academics increase and that there's more time for teaching. So remembering that all behavior is communication, I came up with 2 main goal areas and 4 objectives. So the first objective would be for a climate and culture committee, providing teachers and staff, families and students resources. And this would be hoping to have office referrals and suspensions decrease by 20%. Additionally, we want our attendance to go up, and my goal would be to increase it to 97%. We also want our grades 2 through 5 to increase meeting their growth targets by 10%. Because if we know they can increase their MAP growth targets, by the spring, we know that they can do much better on IAR. And additionally, for, again, those scores in TRC for our K through second graders, we want them to increase by 10% as well. So when looking at behavior and attendance for objectives 1 and 2, I had 4 main steps in mind: recruit, train and model, implement, evaluate, reteach, and revise. So taking a look at this area under recruitment, we'd want to recruit a multidisciplinary team for culture and climate committee, including teachers and staff members from many grades, as well as family and community members. Additionally, at that start of the school year, we'd want to reach out to students and families, recruiting them before the next school year starts. So one of the ideas I had was to call them up before school starts, make sure they're registered, make sure that they're ready to go, and that they have their bus information. Many times, students are chronically absent at the beginning of a school year because they don't have busing ready to go, and there's a problem with transportation. So trying to take care of any obstacles in their way at the beginning of the school year. Secondly, train and model. So we'd want to train teachers on a new implementation of a minor referral form, and making sure that teachers had a code of conduct so that they knew what a minor behavior was and a major behavior was. Additionally, provide training in the classroom for classroom management. We know that that's a tough area, especially for all of our new teachers. We want to train for teachers and model for students school-wide behavior expectations to make sure that there was consistent and fair expectations around the school. Third area would be implementation. And we want to implement some positive reward systems in the school. First of all, morning meeting time in classrooms to promote community and unity. Secondly, we want to have wonderful time at the end of the day for bus dismissal. This would be a great time to talk about all the wonderful things that kids did throughout the day. Thirdly, a positive behavior system called Wonderful Tickets. So students would earn wonderful tickets for their behaviors throughout the school day, and they would be able to turn them in for school store items. We are going to have an attendance intervention where the peer buddies from an older grade to a younger grade would check in on each other and say, "Hey, great to have you at school today. Awesome to see you." And so it's kind of like a peer buddy system, but for attendance. Additionally, when we have major incidents occur or crises occur for behavior, we'd want to utilize a reflection sheet. And this would help, number one, calm a student down during a crisis. Number two, be able to communicate what happened during the crisis. And number three, give processing time for both the staff member involved and the student. And that would help us really identify the antecedent behavior and consequence of our crises and hopefully target some interventions for those situations. Fourthly, evaluate, reteach, and revise. So we're going to review our data monthly, and it almost be on a cycle where major behaviors, minor behaviors, and attendance, so that we know what's going on and seeing if our interventions are working. If needed, we would revise IEPs and BIPs to make sure that any student that is exhibiting behaviors has all of the resources that they would need. And then we would revise items for next year. In the area of academics for reading and math, Objective 3 and 4, I targeted 4 areas as well as for this. I targeted reading implementation, instructional best practices, math implementation, and evaluate and reteach. For this area, in reading and in math, I wanted students to begin practicing those written response questions. Sometimes they can be overwhelming for students and not know the expectations for that. So in both reading and math, students would practice those written response expectations. Additionally, they would vertically align so that students from 5th grade on to 2nd grade would know how to answer these questions and know the expectations, and each year they would build on each other. For reading, there would be a research-based program for our K through 2 students to make sure that they progressed in their English TRC scores, and guided daily instruction. Part 2 was best practices. So we'd want to provide UDL resources for our lessons, making sure that we target visual, verbal, tactile, and kinesthetic learners, as well as making sure that we had quality anchor charts and quality visuals in our classrooms. Also, we want to have our culturally responsive instruction based on our populations of our school, especially that population of our 76% Latino, and also best practices for students as ELLs. In math, we want to use that daily ACI data to guide our teaching, reteaching, and make sure that we target the skills that are missed. Lastly, in the area of math, skill practice. So many times, students do not know their facts for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we don't want to drill and kill, but we need to have some sort of intervention to make sure that students aren't able to know their facts rather than having a small error on a paper and getting the whole problem wrong. So that would be an area that we could use to make sure that our scores keep going up in reading and math. And then we're going to evaluate, reteach, and revise. We're going to target our lowest 10% of students, and we're going to keep on progress monitoring. We're going to make sure that those interventions that we have for those students are working. And then we're going to have a reteaching block of time for all students to make sure that they know what they know that they know that they know. So lastly, I want to talk about some ongoing resources. There would be tutoring that would be based on grade level preference, either morning or afternoon, for all grades, kindergarten through fifth grade, in reading and math. There'd be coaching cycles that our experts would be using to help our new teachers, as well as any other staff member that needed help in their classroom. And those coaches would also make sure that we're using our instructional best practices across the building. The next part I have is NTS, and that is called a new teacher session. And so these would be sessions that would be in our building that would help teachers with the nuances of wonderful school. And so they would also receive the district mentoring, but every other month they would either receive a chat and chew session, so come in for 30 minutes, chat and tell us what's new, or a more strategically planned session based on the needs of the new teachers in the building. Next is Sunshine Club. And so this would be something building wide for staff to help encourage them throughout their day. We know at Wonderful School that there's wonderful teachers there and they need to be recognized. We'd again use our parent and community partnerships and definitely utilize our PTA, but also bring in community partners for things like recognizing great attendance, recognizing positive behaviors, and using things like Boys and Girls Club and other different little clubs to promote positive behavior in the school. We're going to also continue to do continuous data dives and looking for what's working and what's not working. What can we tweak a little bit but not tweak majorly? We don't want to make a huge change after we've already implemented an intervention. We want to make sure it's working and given it time to be successful. And then technology. Students would be using technology for reading and math for reading and math to make sure that they're bringing in those skill gaps. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation on Wonderful School. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you and take care. Bye.